So, you want to be a dungeon master.
So you want to be a dungeon master.
So you want to be a dungeon.
So you want to be a dungeon master.
So, you want to be a dungeon master.
That's great. We're here to help. I'm Taylor.
And I'm Justin. This week, we're going to be taking a look at the changes to the Barbarian class. That's right, we're discussing the D&D Player's Handbook 2024. In older episodes, we go over the 2014 classes and subclasses for each and every class, so go check those out. Now, we're going to examine the updated classes every couple of episodes, and we're going to check out what's changed, what's better, and what's weird, and maybe even worse. And remember, some of these are just our opinions based on our experiences, so don't worry. Don't get mad, don't rage quit, because today we're going Barbarian. But first, without discussing mechanics, describe a Barbarian that you would like to play.
I like the thought, like the archetype, I guess I would say, of the Norse berserker. That's always I think like quintessential barbarian.
Yeah.
Would be a lot of fun. It's
yeah.
kind of very vanilla white bread answer to that, but really and honestly, when I think barbarian, that's what I think of just that crazy, obviously battle rage, freaking bullet arrows and stuff just kind of pinging off of the massive pecs, like super built. Like, yeah, you know what I'm talking about.
I know exactly what you're talking about. Do you remember the video game, or have you ever played it, For Honor?
I've heard of it.
It was pretty good.
It's probably sitting in my Steam list somewhere.
Probably.
Of games
It had a good
that
run.
I own that I've not played.
Yeah, it's one of those games where, because so much of it, I mean, I think there is a story mode that you would still be able to play, but obviously the online might, for all I know, be defunct at this point, where like just no one's on the servers. But it was very fun, and they when the game started, it like separated into 3 factions, and there were like, vaguely speaking, there was like Vikings, knights, and I don't even want to just say samurais because it was more inclusive than that. But I guess just like, let's just say like, broadly speaking, again, like East Asian influence,
Okay.
Mainly Japanese, but I don't know everything there is to know about weapons and martial arts.
So we're talking like the samurais, the ninja, the monks.
It had a little bit of everything in that regard.
Okay.
But
yeah.
it was really fun, and I remember when they came out with, because like the Vikings had a berserker was one of the things you could choose.
Nice.
It was sick. It was really cool. Yeah. Just like the 2, they're not called tomahawks, but hand axes. Very, very fun. I like that. That's a good one. For me, I think,
what about you?
The thing I think about most with Barbarian, in terms of playing one, is how I'm going to flavor rage in general. And I often think about the trope, like the common trope of barbarians being stoopy boys, being really dumb. Just dump stat intelligence. They're stupid. Sometimes they can't even read, all kinds of stuff. And as funny as that is, and like, of course, there's like hilarious moments to lean into that and stuff. There is a part of me, especially if you know me at all, I love subverting things. So like, of course, I want to play a super smart barbarian.
Yeah. Do the whole smart Hulk thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I mean. It kind of depends on how I choose to flavor the rage, because it could be something like Hulk, or in ways similar to Hulk, but like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde also. Yeah. Like maybe there is sort of an alchemical thing. Like every time I go into rage, I actually like take a potion, like just for flavor. I'm not actually taking a potion, but like, I don't know. I think that would be really, really fun to sort of subvert the tropes.
Right.
But either way.
Yeah, I like that.
You've played a barbarian.
I thought about doing something. I have played a barbarian, and I played him as like kind of an older retired adventurer,
which is always fun.
Yeah, I do. I like that trope too. And like he's old, but he's like the Master Roshi type of old person who is also just completely stacked.
Yeah, deceptively strong.
Right, yeah. Well, because he's eternal and all of his muscles are hidden under the shell.
True.
Yeah, because I played a what I don't even remember what they're called, like
Turtles.
It's
They changed
turtles.
one
Yeah,
letter.
that's it. Okay, yeah.
It's so
he was a
frustrating.
turtle, and his whole thing was he was just always eating. Because I'm of a camp in D&D that is like totally headcanon, but like food equates to damage. Like pretty much all of my characters who hit like Mack trucks are also constantly eating.
I mean, you need those calories.
You got to have those calories, baby.
You got to have the input so that you can output.
Exactly.
Yeah, I get it. You got to feed the engine. I totally get that. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I played a Barbarian once pretty early on. It was like one of my really early PCs that I've ever played, Walden Thoreau. And I went Zealot Barbarian because I liked because I was choosing a species, the Furbolg, that if you're going by D&D lore, a Barbarian wouldn't make the most sense. Generally speaking, they're so gentle. They love nature. They're just like nice all the time, is like, at least, again, according to normal D&D lore. And so it quickly became like, well, why would he be a barbarian? Like, how did that happen? And so that's how I chose Zealot, because it was like, oh, what if he grew up around a bunch of druids and clerics who all worshipped like a nature deity? And then the typical tragic backstory of like, I returned to town and my entire village is destroyed, my parents killed, and da-da-da. And so I'm still going to follow the deity, but in a different way.
Right.
And I was even considering multi-classing eventually at some point with either druid or cleric, even though, because I like the challenge of making a magical barbarian. But like, I've only would have done a couple levels, but you know, who knows?
Yeah.
But I really enjoyed that character. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah,
it is
Walden
interesting.
was a lot of fun. I enjoyed that campaign. I don't know. The outside the table stuff got in the way, but the campaign itself was fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And playing a barbarian, and this is true for a lot of martial classes, some of it does just depend on the campaign itself and like the vibes and like how much fun you're going to have, not in combat and in combat for that matter, like how dynamic the combats are, because we've all been there where like eventually making melee attacks every turn gets annoying. So you gotta find ways to have fun with it. But before we go too much into that, let's get into the meat of the episode here.
Let's talk about these new changes. They changed it up. They changed it up here for 2024, and it's not all bad.
No, it certainly is not. There's a lot of good in these changes. Some are genuinely like just good changes. I mean, there's nothing you could even say about it. I guess from like a DM's perspective, some of the changes, just in my head, I'm thinking of like power players that I play with, and I'm just like, whoa, fuck, that would suck to have a player who could do this. Like this is actually too good. And so there are certain changes that to me are like pretty freaking OP, but for the player, good. Being able to do more things is good. So let's get into it.
Well, yeah, let's talk about it.
Hey gang, we wanted to talk to you about something pretty important real quick. See, we have some really cool ideas for the future, but we need your help. You can do that by supporting us through our Patreon. At the lowest tier, you get early access to podcast episodes, access to episodes of Action Surge, our post-session table talk show, and entry into a private channel on our Discord server. At the next tier, you can get access to Bonus Action, our bonus content podcast where we talk about a huge variety of D&D and TTRPG related things, like Multi-Class Mystery Mashup, where we get 2 random classes and have to build a character, or Monster Matchmaker, where we go over our favorite monsters at each CR level, or recaps of our home campaign, plus so much more. Joining the Patreon helps us continue to grow and put out content that gets better and better as we learn, improve, and try new things. So, check out the link in the description to join the gang today. So at level 1, you get your rage. Your classic, this is what makes barbarians barbarians. Get that rage right at level 1. You enter a rage as a bonus action as long as you're not wearing heavy armor, same as before. You have a number of rages shown in the little Barbarian table at the start of that class in the player's handbook. And a new thing, because normally it was you just regain all those charges after a long rest. But now you can also regain one use of rage on a short rest, which is nice.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, there's a lot of interesting abilities here in regards to using the rage charges in ways that are different, and also the recharging of them. And it just makes me think so introspectively on how we as a table, like our home games, for example, use rests, whether they're short rests or long rests, and how often and all the different things, you know? So it really is like pretty interesting. Like there's a part of me that like, maybe if I was going to do another insane campaign from level 1 to level 20, I would institute some kind of Baldur's Gate style rule where it's like you can take 2 short rests and then you must take a long rest. Like that's it.
Right.
Or something, you know?
Yeah, I think also we're, especially at our home games, where once we get up into this high level play, the short rest aspects kind of fall off, like the benefits of a short rest kind of fall off. And also there's a lot more time between even needing a rest.
Yeah.
Because most of our stuff, like combats and stuff like that, are really big blowout fights. And then that's it.
Yeah,
like
for sure.
Done. Like we did do the dungeon crawl a bit, which was an interesting, which was a fun and interesting way to get like resource drain and stuff like that. But yeah, I think I definitely do think rest and stuff is something that in the early game is something you can kind of crack down on, but then once you start getting into the high level play, it just it doesn't mean as much, especially when you start getting access to spells like Tiny Hut and Magnificent Mansion and stuff like that.
Yeah, it really,
where you can just kind of protect yourself no matter what.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because it's like there's just so many ways for characters to recharge things now, it feels. And so obviously, like warlocks, fighters, you're still gonna get a ton on short rests, whether it's your action surges or whatever, all your spells as a warlock. But it's just interesting. I mean, you'll see what I mean as we go through this. There's like some really interesting stuff for the rage. But while you have your rage active, almost everything is the same. Damage resistance, you're still resistant to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing. You get the extra rage damage bonus, which is in the table. Advantage on strength saves and saving throws and checks. You can't concentrate or cast spells. Now the duration is where this has changed big time.
Okay.
I mean, big time might be strong, but like it's definitely changed. So when you rage, it lasts until the end of your next turn.
Okay.
If it is still active on your next turn, you can extend it by one of 3 ways. Either make an attack roll against an enemy, force an enemy to make a saving throw, or take a bonus action to extend the rage.
Interesting.
So what they've done is they've taken away the verbiage that allows the rage to get extended via being attacked.
Yeah.
You used to just be able to, if somebody attacks you, that continues your rage. And so they've taken that out. They've also been really specific about the wording, make an attack roll against an enemy. So you can't just like slap your friend for 1 point of damage. That doesn't fly.
Right. It's classic. I think we had one game where somebody was in a rage and just was making attack rolls against furniture to keep the rage going and stay intimidating.
I've seen all kinds of stuff. Yeah, I've seen barbarians like injure themselves just to take a little bit of damage just to keep the rage going. So there's all different kinds of ways, but you could just use a bonus action to continue the rage. But the downside being you can't use your bonus action for anything else.
Right.
So that it's interesting. I need to see this one played out. I don't necessarily have a huge opinion on it yet. I just need to see it played out. I think depending on the map and like the combat, that could be a huge hindrance, or it could be totally fine. I have no idea. Now each time your rage is extended, it just continues. It lasts until the end of your next turn, so on and so forth. And you can keep doing this for up to 10 minutes. One rage can just last 10 minutes now, assuming that you keep it up.
Right.
It ends early if you're incapacitated. or if you put on heavy armor. Pretty simple.
Fair, yeah.
So for the most part, the
normal.
rage is the same. The duration is really the only thing that's been updated. Then we get the unarmored defense. Unarmored
Classic.
defense, same as always. While you're not wearing any armor, your base class is, armor class is 10 plus your dexterity and your constitution modifiers. And you can use a shield, and it doesn't
Nice.
change that at all. That's all the same. I had to go back and double check
Yeah.
the shield part because I wasn't 100% sure in my head, but it is the same.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then
And shield's a real cheap way to get that +2.
it's
Look,
huge. It's just that barbarians.
I'm all about it.
Yeah, barbarians so often, and again, this is different player to player, but so often you're going to use a two-handed weapon, and that's why most of the time shields don't get used by barbarians. But
Right.
if you're cool using a one-handed weapon, freaking go for it. Because the one
for
thing that we didn't go over, because it's almost identical, and so I didn't plan on going over it, but like the little tiny part that's almost like level 0, that's like, here are the saving throws you're proficient in. Here are the skills you can choose from. You know what I mean? So like the one thing that they changed on that is your starting equipment. In 2014, there were more options for starting equipment. It would say something to the effect of, you can have a great axe or 2 martial weapons or 2 simple or something like that.
Right.
Now it's very much like, here's what you get or gold. And you start with either, unless you choose the gold option, you start with just a great axe. That's your weapon.
What?
Yeah. And again, that's rules as written. Obviously, you can fucking finagle the shit out of starting equipment, right? Like that's one of the easiest and most common things to change. I'm just saying, I thought that was a little interesting. They really want you to use a heavy weapon. But speaking of weapons, new to 2024, huge improvement for players specifically. I feel like the DMs, this is a nightmare for me. And I think it's because I play with power players. Let me explain really quickly why so many of my opinions are this way. Is because I play with power players who are fucking good. And so the idea that we needed to make players stronger is insane to me. And I think that's all that it is. It's not that they're bad changes. It's just, to me, it felt unnecessary. But I think it's because I play with so many people who are experienced, where it's like, you didn't need extra stuff. You were fine.
It was
so the
fine
idea that
before.
we're adding extra stuff is like, what?
Yeah.
That big extra thing that barbarians are one of the classes that get this right at the beginning is weapon mastery. So we'll do a whole episode on weapon masteries, I imagine, in the future at some point. It's a good idea. But like, it's just different ways, different little effects that you can use depending on the specific weapon that you choose to be a quote unquote master in.
Yeah.
So right at level 1, you
things
start
like-
with 2. You get to choose what they are, whether it's a great axe or a long sword or hand axes, whatever you want it to be. And each long rest, you can like swap one out.
Okay.
So if for some reason you know that on the next day you're going to be using a ton of javelins, I don't know, then you can do that. Switch it to javelin.
Fair enough.
No problem. Then
All right.
you also gain more as you level up. It's on the barbarian table. I think eventually you get up to like 4 or 5, but
That's crazy. Like, that's a lot of weapon masteries, and I don't, unless you're hot swapping weapons a whole bunch, I really don't see
I
the
don't get it
benefit
either.
of more than 2.
Yeah,
It really doesn't make any sense, especially since you can swap them at a long rest. Like, what barbarian is going in with a glaive and a great axe and a broadsword and
I know.
all that
I don't
stuff.
get it either, but there you go. That's all at
right.
level 1.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
It's all, so I mean, it's pretty much all the same. They just they added the weapon mastery stuff in. It really feels like they added it in Baldur's Gate 3 and they were like, oh, this is a really cool mechanic. Let's put it in the actual game.
That's exactly
And
what
now
it
it
is.
is.
That's exactly what it is. The difference with
So
Baldur's
if you're
Gate
familiar
3
with Baldur's
is that a lot of the times you can only use 1 per short rest or long rest.
yeah, that's
so significantly
that's
more
rough.
balanced, maybe. Who's to say?
rough.
Let us
Yeah,
know.
who's to
Email
say?
us. Join our Discord server. So then at level 2, once again, things stay mostly the same. Maybe some of the language gets clarified,
sure.
but first off, you get danger sense. Advantage on dex saves unless incapacitated. So the only interesting thing about this one is that the wording is very specific. This is just a tiny thing that I noticed. I don't even think that this is like a big deal at all. But
Right.
you'll notice it says the only way you wouldn't have advantage on dexterity saving throws is if you were incapacitated, right?
Okay.
The one in 2014, it just specifies you have advantage on dex saves against effects that you can see.
Okay.
So you weren't allowed to be blinded or deafened, it even includes, which is interesting. But
weird.
They took that away. So now it's just straight up, hey, are you incapacitated? No? Then you can roll with advantage, which is interesting.
Okay.
You give that barbarian a ring of evasion and the DM is fucked.
Yeah.
Absolutely fucked. Then we get reckless attack. Now, reckless attack, largely exactly the same. Again, just a wording clarification, really. When you make the first attack on your turn, you can choose to attack recklessly or not. So they're kind of, forcing you to do it right at the beginning of your attack, as opposed to, I don't know why you would do this, but sometimes people would make an attack and be like, oh shit, I forgot to go reckless. Can I go reckless now on the second attack? Any DM who says no to that is an asshole. Straight up. Because it only benefits you, the DM, for the barbarian to make less attacks with advantage. Because all of your attacks are at advantage against the reckless attacker. So just a specific change. Now you get advantage on attack rolls using strength until the start of your next turn.
Sure.
Now,
yeah.
I highlighted the until the start of your next turn thing because that's just a wording clarification. It is exactly the same in 2014. They just changed the wording to make it very clear. If you are doing an opportunity attack and you've already recklessly attacked, you still have it.
That's good.
So that's just like an important thing to know because that affects things later on with the new barbarian. The idea, because reckless attack gets a huge upgrade later on in the class. And then as we know, all attack rolls against you have advantage during that time.
Yep.
So pretty important. Level 3.
Fair enough.
You get your barbarian subclass. We'll go after that. We'll go after that in a little bit. You also get primal knowledge. Kind of weird. I think it's kind of weird. It's interesting and it's cool. Gives you more out of combat versatility because you can tell that the creators are truly grasping at straws trying to make rage something that you can use out of combat. And they just are struggling, I feel like, because primal knowledge gives you a proficiency in another one of the barbarian skills. So go back to that little tiny chart that tells you all the different skills that you can become proficient in right at level 1. And you get to choose an extra one.
Okay.
Also, while you're raging, if you make an acrobatics, intimidation, perception, stealth, or survival check, you can use your strength instead of whatever associated skill it normally uses.
I low-key love this. Mainly for the intimidation and perception and stealth sometimes too. But intimidation, I've always felt should be a strength skill anyway.
Yeah, I've always... Yeah, we've definitely talked about this in the past. I think it just depends on how your character is intimidating them.
True.
Do you know what I mean? Like, are you getting physical or are you not? That's how I would normally determine it. Are you using your size and strength as part of the intimidation? Because if you're just saying mean words, do you know what I mean? Like, to a certain degree, it's like that is charisma. But for the most, this is good for the player, no doubt. The reason that they're using strength, because like the idea of strength for stealth or even like perception, there was like a big part of me that just is like, I'm just like struggling to make the connections where I'm like, how the fuck? Intimidation makes so much sense, right?
Right.
Strength.
Right. Acrobatics makes a bunch of sense.
You can, absolutely. Yeah. You got thick thighs. You can do a backflip. I get it. The rest of them, I'm kind of like, what the fuck are we talking about? But they use it. The reason they even go into this in the book, the reason is that this is supposed to represent your primal power. And so it is just the power of, I don't know, nature or like your rage in general is what is giving you the boost to these ability checks.
Yeah, and in the wordage of most of the books, primal is like almost an animalistic feature of basically becoming less human and more like
instinctual almost
creatures. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So
which makes sense. Yeah,
in that light, it makes some sense, but still, I mean,
It's just funny, the idea
I
of
get where
being
you're
like,
coming
God,
from.
I'm fucking
Yeah.
strong. You can't even see me. My stealth is so fucking high. Like, I'm just picturing Drax standing absolutely still.
Yeah.
You cannot see me. And it's just like, okay, what are we doing?
What
So that's
are we doing here?
very
What are we
silly,
doing
but
here?
very fun. And again, good for the player. Level 4, ASI or feet, normie. Level 5, normie, extra attack. You get 2 attacks instead of 1 when you take the attack action. And you get that fast movement 6. Whoops. Get rid of that. Fast movement. Is a typo.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
If you're not wearing heavy armor, 10 more feet to your speed. So
Hell yeah.
you should have just about a minimum of 40 at this point. That could change depending on the species you choose, but about a 40.
Didn't they get rid of a lot of the species issues? Aren't dwarves 30 feet now?
I think most are 30, but I'm thinking there might be some that are like 35 or even more. I'm just,
okay.
I don't want to,
right. I gotcha.
I don't want to make it a fact if I'm not 100%. So I'm like, I think,
Fair.
give or take, you'll be at 40 at this point. Level 6, subclass feature. Moving right along. Level 7.
Yep.
Here's an interesting thing, because this is exactly the same as 2014, but because they've changed how initiative works a little bit, it actually has interesting ramifications, I think. So you get Feral Instinct, which is advantage on initiative rolls. Dope. Always a good thing, right? Especially for a melee class, especially for a tank.
Right.
The interesting thing is that in 2024, if you're using all of 2024 rules, Surprise, in my opinion, is significantly worse. It's simpler to a certain degree, but I just don't like it.
Isn't it just disadvantage on initiative?
If you are surprised, you get disadvantage on stealth checks. Not on stealth checks, excuse me. Disadvantage on initiative.
Right. Okay.
And so it's like,
sure,
it just doesn't feel, I mean, like, yeah, obviously the person is getting nerfed and stuff, but it's just like, well, the barbarian always has advantage on initiative. I don't know. There's something about it. Not to mention, like, if you surprise the barbarian, then the barbarian just gets a straight roll, which is really interesting. And I don't know. I'm just not a fan of the new surprise. The idea that the dice could decide that, like, I was invisible, snuck up on you, slit your throat, all while invisible. But if your dice are nicer than my dice, you get the jump on me? What?
Yeah,
that's crazy. So I just hate it. But that's just me, and that's just how I feel about surprise. I've heard arguments, and it is simpler. It's easier. Just that's totally fine. I've had bad experience with initiative in general, being like such a heavy hand in how fights go.
Yeah.
But again, some of that is just high level play. Where like you're like, oh great, this person gets to go first. Well, here comes 100 points of damage instantly, or like this insane high level spell or something, you know?
Right.
At level 7, they've also added instinctive pounce. I like this one. I think these are interesting. When you take the bonus action to enter the rage, as part of that, you can also move up to half of your speed.
Oh geez.
Yeah.
That's a lot of movement, especially with the speedy movement or whatever from level 3 or 5. I mean, the fast movement there. I mean, that's a decent amount of movement.
Yeah. No, it's huge. And it eventually goes up, which is nuts.
Crazy.
Unnecessary, some would say. Level 8, another ASI or a feat. Level 9, here is a massive change, I think. This one is one of those changes that is objectively good for the player. And yet, as the DM, there is a part of me that's like, what the fuck? Now I got to deal with this. So here's the crazy part. So Brutal Strike. In the past, it was called Brutal Critical in 2014. And all it did was add extra damage to critical hits. So very cool, but incredibly circumstantial, just because how often are you actually rolling crits, especially on attack rolls? Not like that's the only time that it matters. So what they've done is they've changed it. So now the interesting thing is that you have to be using reckless attack.
Okay.
When you're doing reckless attack on one of those attacks, because at this point you have 2, you can give up the advantage on one of those attacks. So just roll straight. And if you hit, first of all, you do an extra 1d10 damage.
Nice.
So already it's doing almost as much as the Brutal Critical did. But also, you get to cause one of these effects. The first one is Forceful Blow. And there's no saves for these.
That's
There's no
crazy
saves
to
for these.
me.
So
Yeah,
Forceful Blow.
That's wild to me.
Absolutely nuts. Forceful Blow, the target is pushed 15 foot back, and you can move up to half your speed towards the target without provoking opportunity attacks.
Insane.
Yep. And the second
Dude,
potential...
barbarians are fast as fuck.
I know.
Now.
Think about the World Tree Barbarian again that we went over in episode 58 with all the teleporting.
Uh-huh.
Bonkers. An absolute joke. In a good way. For the players. The other effect that you could do with this Brutal Strike is a Hamstring Blow. The target's speed is reduced by 15 feet until the start of your next turn.
Crazy.
Absolutely crazy. There is a caveat. The target can only be affected by one hamstring blow at a time.
But you've got 2 hamstrings, Justin.
I know that. They are just covering their bases in case a party decides to go, oops, all barbarians. Because there's a couple things in the future, too, that are like we're going to read things in the future, too, that are also like that, where they're like, this ability you can only use once, unless there's another subclass of this type barbarian in the part. And it's like, okay,
Right.
That's so specific. But, yeah, I mean, this is, I think, just objectively good. How do you feel about this Brutal Strike?
I like it. And it's, in my opinion, kind of broken, but, not as, it's not an unprecedented break. I'm thinking of right now the Tempest Cleric, where you get the push that has no save on it anytime you do lightning or thunder damage. Yeah. So it's the same thing. I think it's only 10 feet, but it's still, the pushing bit. I love, me, I love pushing bad guys off cliffs. That's my favorite thing to do.
It's a classic for a lot of players.
Yeah. Why deal with the health pool when you can just take them out of the fight? And Hamstring Blow is nice. I think it could be used very effectively. I would probably 9 times out of 10 be using Forceful Blow, but Hamstring definitely has its place in a combat.
Yeah, there are some specific circumstances where stopping the enemy from moving too much is so fucking helpful.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because it's the way it's written, target speed is reduced by 15 feet. That changes things. It depends on because if you do that and then let's say another party member makes the person go prone, it's that's it. If they have 30 feet of movement, that's it. That's it. All they can do is stand up.
Or if you just take mastery with a quarterstaff. I mean, I know it's not a strength weapon, but still,
it can be.
Quarterstaves get
because quarterstaffs are
topple.
I think quarterstaffs are strength actually.
Okay.
I think only for monks they get to be dex. Because they're considered monk weapons.
That makes sense.
Yeah,
right.
They're not normally finesse.
That makes sense.
But no, you're absolutely right. There's a million things you can do to wombo combo the shit out of this. And the Brutal Strike gets better not once, but twice as we continue along. Level 10, subclass feature, incredible. Level 11, in my opinion, they've made this way stronger. So we get the Relentless Rage. If you drop to 0 hit points while raging and don't die outright, you can make a DC 10 con save. Nice. Really easy for the Barbarian to hit, I imagine.
Right.
Especially at level 11. Because you have a +4 to your proficiency. And if you started as a Barbarian at level 1, then you're proficient in con saves.
Right. And then also...
And your con should be
going...
At least a +3, maybe. Right? So
right, yeah, because if you're... Yeah, because, if you're playing the unarmored Barbarian, then you're going to want that con up high so you get a better AC.
Exactly. And more health.
And more health, right? And all the stuff that goes with being the party tank.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
So, presumably a DC 10 will be incredibly easy to hit. Now, when you succeed, because I think you will... I believe in you. When you succeed, your hit points, instead of just what it used to be was you go to 1 hit point.
Right.
Now, your hit points don't just go up to 1 hit point. It goes to whatever half of your Barbarian level is.
Rounded down or up?
Oh, I didn't write that down specifically. I imagine rounded down.
Yeah.
But
Most
Either way.
things halved or rounded.
That's what I'm
down, but
thinking.
So yeah, so I mean, even then, it's still 4 more HP at level 11.
Yeah, it's slightly better.
Mm-hmm.
And each time you use this feature, the DC increases by 5. Which
Wow, so it never really just goes away. It just gets a little bit harder.
just gets a little bit harder. Yeah, DC 15 and then a DC 20, and then it starts getting like really hard, DC 25 and higher. But after a short or long rest, it goes back to 10.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Pretty intense because it's not a reaction or anything. This just happens, right?
Right.
I mean, you double this with like half orc or orc, that like other ability that pops you back up. Woof.
Right.
Really, really good. Level 12.
Just get punch drunk and just standing there covered in blood. Oh my God, I can't stand up. Oh God, I'm hit again. I'm still here, baby.
Yeah, just so many movies come to mind of characters.
Barbarian never goes away.
I want to stay down. Insane. So level 12.
I didn't hear no bell.
We get another ASI or feat at level 12. Then level 13, we improve the Brutal Strike.
Sure.
We get 2 more things that we can do with it. This is so nuts, dude. Level 13, insane. The first is Staggering Blow. The target has disadvantage on their next saving throw, and it can't take any opportunity attacks until the start of your next turn. That's just one. The wombo combos that you could do with this.
Yeah.
Save your sorcerer a ton of sorcery points to be like, no, I'll make it so that he has disadvantage. You don't have to use any sorcery points. don't even heighten it. Like, that's crazy. There's so many examples of how that would be nuts to do. In so many fights, I can see that being insane. Like, talk about a way for the Barbarian to truly help burn legendary resistances.
Absolutely.
Like, there's so many good uses of this. It's just so fun. And then the opportunity attacks just feel like a cherry on top, where it's like, oh, and also here's this other thing. Nuts. Then we get Sundering Blow. Now, before the start of your next turn, the next attack roll made by another creature against the target gains a +5 to the roll.
Okay.
So it's pretty much a better version of advantage. So it's a guiding bolt, essentially.
All right.
The only specification is that it does need to be another creature. Can't be your attack, but still pretty freaking sick.
Yeah. +5's nothing to sneeze at.
No, I think statistically it's like maybe a hair better than advantage.
Because it's consistent. It's like a definite thing.
Exactly. So pretty intense. They do specify that an attack roll can only gain 1 Sundering Blow bonus. So that if you do have multiple barbarians.
Oops, all bards. Oops, all barbs.
I guess. I don't know. Then level 14, our final subclass feature before we move on to level 15. Now, we talked about rests, and this is why I bring it up.
Right.
Persistent Rage. When you roll initiative, you regain all uses of rage, and you can only do this once per long rest. I, as a barbarian, somebody who's played a barbarian, I've never run out of rages. Not even fucking close.
Yeah.
I also didn't have a ton of reasons to use them outside of combat, with the exception of like an arm wrestling competition or maybe breaking down a door, right? Now it seems like the mechanics are helping us maybe use rage more often out of combat, but either way.
Because of all the skill bonuses and stuff that you get with it. But still
really powerful. To be able to recharge all of your rages is really, really powerful. And it becomes even more powerful as we go along with some of these. It depends on the specific class or subclass, but some of the subclasses, similar to how like druids have alternate uses of wild shape, or bards have alternate uses of, bardic inspiration. Some of the subclasses have alternate uses for rage, where like you're already raging, but you just burn another rage to do a different thing. And so being able to just at the beginning of the fight be like, oh, let me just make sure I have all of my rages ready is pretty powerful. And then now your rage lasts 10 minutes regardless without having to do anything extra.
Okay.
And now your rage ends only if you either A, put on heavy armor. Such a funny idea to have a raging barbarian be like, oh, I need a weighted blanket. It's going to calm me down. So if you put on heavy armor or if you're unconscious. So they just changed the condition. So it was incapacitated. Now it's unconscious.
Right. Because theoretically, stunned or something like that could knock you out of a rage before this. But now you're just always mad.
Yeah. Incapacitated
Hulk status
is a sleeper condition. Because incapacitated really by itself isn't like the most insane, but there are hundreds of player abilities that get thwarted by being incapacitated.
Yeah.
So really a huge sleeper. But no longer does incapacitation end your rage. Now you have to be fully unconscious. So pretty sick. Level 16, ASI or feat. Once again. Actually, the final one. That's the last one you get. Level 17. Hey, that brutal strike, let's make it better. Let's make it actually so much better, because here's what we're going to do. Number 1, extra damage of the brutal strike increases to 2d10.
Jesus.
So that's
a whole nother weapon.
It's a whole nother fucking weapon. And hey, let's make it crazier, Taylor. Now, when you make your brutal strike, pick 2 of those brutal strike effects.
Ooh, baby.
Yeah.
Yes, dude.
Push them 15
that's why
feet and
that's
have
why
their speed.
Yeah, that's why they made it so that they can only have one effect on whatever at a time. Was because later on you get the ability to put 2 down.
Yeah.
That's rough, buddy.
Yeah.
But it essentially, like, if you do this though, you're basically giving everything advantage to attack you while not getting advantage yourself
on one of your attacks. Yeah, for sure.
Well, it'd be
no,
or is it just one of the? It's still just one of the attacks.
Yeah, you just it has 2 effects.
Pick 2 effects. Crazy. Yeah. I thought that it was like 2 attacks. You get whatever. No. Okay.
No, still just the 1 attack. But it does a little bit of extra damage, and it has an extra effect added onto it. I need to recheck the wording in the book. I wrote down 2 different brutal strike effects. I think I wrote that for a reason. I think that is the way that it is supposed to be written. Therefore, you couldn't push them 30 feet.
Right.
I don't think you can double up the same one, but I don't know. Maybe that's up for interpretation. But still, really fucking strong. Also, think about if you crit on this. I mean, you're not rolling with advantage, so pretty important. Now, this also all brings into effect the entire idea of the house rule of flanking.
Right.
Because I think, man, if I have a barbarian, especially a fucking 2024 barbarian in my party, I am not allowing flanking.
Yeah.
Because reckless is so important to the build now.
Right.
You know, where like, because in the past, I've had barbarians never use reckless because they're just scared of having advantage all the time against them. You know what I mean? Every once in a while, you get a player who plays a barbarian and never recklessly attacks. But now it's like you really want to, because you want to use all those extra brutal strike things. Otherwise, if you don't reckless attack, there's like 4 levels of abilities you're not getting.
Right.
So it does put a lot of emphasis on the reckless attack. Which reckless attack is all about advantage and disadvantage and all that kind of stuff. So flanking just makes it way
I think a lot
looser.
of the rules in 2024 make it so that flanking, because it is technically a homebrew rule in 2014, they kind of write it out in the 2024 version. Hey, it's not rules as written, so we're going to make it so that flanking, is, they're kind of trying to get rid of it.
And if given enough time to prepare, I could also come up with enough reasons that it's also kind of written out in 2014.
True.
Not as much, but a little bit.
Right.
Just because there are so many abilities that either give advantage or disadvantage and and like, I mean, we've seen it in our home games, like flanking just changes things where it's like, oh, you just are going to have advantage on every fucking attack. And it's like
this big bad, we're just gonna surround him and poke him with sticks, basically.
Yeah, and it's just like yeah, like when I first started playing D&D, both as a player and a DM, I loved flanking. I was all about it. Critical Role did it, so I thought it was a part of the rules for a long time. And I think over the years as a DM, personally, I actually like I'm cool with flanking. It is what it is. Like if I'm a player and they have flanking, dope. But I think push comes to shove, I actually dislike flanking.
That's
but that's
fair.
just me.
As a player,
just because it's like
as
too
a player,
easy.
I
It's
love
like,
it.
I don't even think you guys need it.
Yeah, as a player, I do love it, but it's basically it was rules as written in 3.5.
Yeah,
I maybe 4. I don't know if it was in 4th edition. I never played 4th edition. I went straight from 3.5 to 5.
Yeah,
so I'm not sure, but definitely in 3.5 it was rules as written. How we play it at the table, it has to be it's a little bit more lax than how we play it, because like the way that we play it is you have to be able to draw a straight line through the thing that completely bisects the token of
just because it gets complicated otherwise,
right?
Like, or I think so. It's like flanking already is a house rule, and it already makes the players that much more better. So there's a part of like Sunny, the character of Sunny in our home game, for example, already has like a plus 12 to hit.
Right.
I would make the argument she doesn't need advantage. Not on every single attack. But
right.
It definitely helps.
3.5 though, it was just a line can be drawn through the token. So they don't have to be exactly bisecting the thing. It could just, as long as there's one person on one side and another person on the other side, it doesn't matter. The only time it really comes down to like when it matters on something like that is when you get into like the huge and large, huge, gargantuan style monsters. But on those, you could have one person on one side and the whole team on the other side, and everybody gets flanking.
Yeah, which is insane to me. Insane.
Yeah,
really interesting. But yeah, that's so flanking is something to consider when you have barbarians in the group if you're using it as a home rule.
Yeah,
because
for sure.
It's going to affect this big time. Imagine being able to be like, oh, I get to do extra damage and 2 effects, and I still have advantage because I'm flanking.
Right.
Like, my reckless attack is, Because I remember playing a barbarian, and there were a lot of times because we were doing flanking, I never reckless attacked. There was never a reason to.
Because why open yourself up to it? Advantage?
I'm flanking. I get advantage already.
Right.
So it does change things. It is something to consider. So that was level 17. Our brutal strike gets even better.
Okay.
Level 18, we get indomitable might. If your total for a strength or a save, like a strength check or a save, is less than your strength ability score, you can use your strength score instead.
Okay.
So pretty good. It feels crazy to put this after level 17 just because the level 17 thing is so good. So it feels, this feels very weak only because of like the order. Do you know what I mean? 17 was so good. And then going to this is like, oh, okay, this is good.
Your whole ability score though, like,
yeah, like if you have a 20,
if you have a 20, that's just all automatically a 20 on any strength check. Or better.
Use your strength score instead. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I mean, I might have to. That's what it is, and that's what they had that in 2014.
Reliable
too.
talent on crack.
Yeah, but only for strength checks and strength saves.
That's all good, baby. I'd be trying to figure out in a way of like, especially given all of your primal stuff that you get at level 2.
True, it does affect all of those.
Or level 3. You now can't roll lower than a 20 on an intimidation check as long as you're raging. Can't roll lower than a 20 on acrobatics or stealth or survival or perception. Like, that's wild.
No, it's really, really powerful. It is. Maybe that's why they made it level 18.
Yeah.
It was level 18.
At level 18 with all the ASIs and feats and stuff that you can get, your score is at a 20 or higher at this point.
Should be. Yeah. It definitely should be. But either way, solid. Super solid.
Yeah.
No notes.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. No notes. It's great for somebody who's going to go full 18 levels of Barbarian. This is a good,
Mm-hmm.
This is a good payoff for that. I think it's definitely worth it to stay in the track rather than multi-classing. I think they're also trying to phase out multi-classing in 2024.
Yeah, I think so too. Which is
way.
I don't know. We'll see. But
I'm not crazy about that. But yeah,
I know level.
You know me with my 3 classes that I run on my home character.
I know they're just fun. It's hard. It's always hard, even in 2014. Like, yes, there are so many classes that you could just dip a level in, and so they've obviously removed that because all the subclasses are at level 3 now. So there is a lot of pushing people to just stick with one class. And I'm fine with that. I'm fine with making the single classes better. I just don't want them to also hurt people who want to multi-class.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Don't make multi-classing worse. Just make the single classes better. I don't know. Anyway, so level 19, you get this really interesting thing, and this is true for almost every single class, I'm pretty sure. At level 19, it's this new thing they added. It's essentially a insanely good feat. It's in the same section of the Player's Handbook 2024 that the feats are in, and it is called Epic Boons. So, Chapter 5, you get an Epic Boon, and the class itself, when you're reading all the Barbarian stuff, it actually gives you a recommendation. So as opposed to going over every single epic boon, I just chose to go over that one specifically, because it's a dealer's choice thing. You as the player playing the level 19 Barbarian can choose any of them. This is the one that the book recommends, so I just figured I'd go over that. So first of all, your strength or dex score increases by 1 to a max of 30.
Okay.
So for some reason, you're rocking a 26. You can go to a 27. The other thing is bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage that you deal negates any resistance.
Okay. I like that.
Not true for immunity, but still very helpful, very cool.
Right.
Level 19, there is a small part of me that thinks like that's going to be really specific. Like if you're fighting another barbarian, dope as hell. But like level 19, you have to have a magical weapon at this point. And I'm trying to think of how many monsters are resistant to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing where the whole non-magical part isn't included. Do you know what I mean? So that's just really specific. For all I know, that's insanely powerful. And there's a part of me, though, that thinks that's a little underwhelming because of the level that you're at. But, whatever. Now, here's the really interesting thing, too. When you roll a nat 20 on an attack roll, you can deal extra damage equal to the ability score that you increased by this feat. It does not say modifier. It says ability score.
The score. Yeah, that's crazy.
Are adding. Let's just pretend like we're at a 20 again. Probably a 21 because of the plus to the epic boon.
+1, yeah.
You're just adding an extra 21 damage on top of the critical.
Wild.
Because you're doing the critical too. You're still doubling the
Right.
damage for the most part, or doubling the dice, or however your table runs it. A lot of house rules sometimes. But yeah, huge extra thing of damage. And let's not forget, if you crit on that brutal strike, I mean, a normal brutal strike without the crit is already an extra 2d10. So now it's 4d10. 4d10 plus, let's say you're using a great axe, is 2d12 now because of crit. So 2d12 plus 4d10 plus whatever your modifiers are, plus 21 or whatever.
Just deleting
Are you
stuff at
fucking
that
kidding me?
point.
Nuts.
Just
Absolutely
absolutely
nuts.
deleting stuff.
So that's insane. Obviously, it is only when you roll a nat 20, so what are you going to do?
Right.
But really intense, really cool. And then...
Very, very cool.
Very cool. And then at level 20, they kept this one exactly the same, with the exception of it's a max of 25 now, but you get Primal Champion.
What?
Your strength and con increase by 4 to a maximum of 25. It used to be a maximum of 24. Just a small difference. The modifier doesn't change at all when you do that. But
Right. The modifier doesn't change. I guess it only really comes down to if you took this epic boon thing.
yeah,
But
maybe.
that's 1 extra damage or whatever. I
Yeah.
don't know.
Pretty
interesting.
intense, putting your strength and con score, just giving them huge boosts. Really, really cool. definitely helps. I mean, con and strength are the two things barbarians are going to use the most.
Yeah.
We've seen that throughout the entire fucking thing.
Yeah, and Constitution is
ton of
retroactive as well. So when you get that con ability score increase, your HP pool will go up a bunch.
A ton. An absolute shit ton. Yeah. So that's the base class.
Okay. I mean, I like it.
Intense.
You know, it makes, we've been talking about it the whole time, and it makes some of our home brew rules kind of go away.
Mm-hmm.
But as a whole, it's, I think, a lot of quality of life upgrades for the Barbarian. I like that it's, you know, it gives you more versatility in combat other than just I run up and smash the thing in the face, which is what Barbarian feels like to me in 2020 or 2014.
Yeah. No, for sure. I think that's what they've done the best with the new Barbarian, is that they've added versatility, both in combat and out of combat, because of the expanded uses of rage.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, well done. Pretty good. Let's breeze through these subclasses.
Let's do it.
Because these are all subclasses that have existed in 2014, do exist in 2014. You can use the old 2014 versions of these, maybe with like the most minor of changes. Right. Keeping in mind that, as we've just gone over, the new Barbarian is a tad stronger than the old Barbarian. So if you're using older subclasses, keep that in mind, that the balancing is all worked in. So, something to consider. Now, we start off with the Path of the Berserker. I should also mention, I think I've already said it already, but we're not going to go over the World Tree Barbarian because we already did in episode 58. So,
yes,
if you're interested in the World Tree Barbarian, go back and check it out. So, Path of the Berserker, same vibes. Some of it is exactly the same. Some of it, in my opinion, is really interesting. Like, I felt like some were nerfs, and let's just get into it. So,
let's get it. Yeah.
Level 3, you get your Frenzy.
Okay.
But they've changed the Frenzy. In the past, it was just you get to make a bonus action extra attack. Now, it locks it into your Reckless attack once again, like everything else. And when you hit, on whatever your first hit is, you deal extra damage as long as it's a strength-based attack.
Okay.
But again, you have to be recklessly attacking while your rage is active.
Yeah, I think a lot of these changes are to get out of the, I don't really have a need to reckless attack, so I'm not going to do it. Now they're basically making it so if you don't reckless attack, you can't use half of your shit.
Yeah, it feels like, and eventually we'll go over it, it feels like what they did with the Ranger, where they were like, not enough people are using Hunter's Mark. Well, let's make it so they have to use Hunter's Mark. And I don't like that as a principle. Even if the class itself, like we just went over the Barbarian is good. It does force you to use reckless attack, which I just don't like that they force you to use it.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how else they could have done it. I mean, obviously it's a complicated, I'm no expert in game design or anything like that. So like, I don't necessarily have a better way of doing it, but it is interesting that how much they genuinely are like, you must use this ability. And it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
I guess. So all the more reason to have your constitution be high and have a ton of health and a decent AC, because so many advantage attacks are coming your way, my friend. So
you're gonna get hit at this point.
You're gonna
get hit. You're gonna get absolutely murked on.
Hit a ton. So when you hit with that frenzied attack, you do extra damage. The extra damage is equal to the number of D6s. It's a number of D6s equal to your rage damage bonus on the table, like the Barbarian table. So it starts at a +2 because you know when you're raging, you do an extra 2 damage. It only goes up to a 4. So at most, 4d6 extra damage on top of this attack. I mean, okay.
Yeah.
That's fine. It's interesting. I mean, you can couple. It's crazy to think about how you can couple this with the Brutal Strike.
Yeah.
Because you get Brutal Strike. I mean, you have to wait a little bit. Obviously, you don't get Brutal Strike until level 9. But with level 9, I mean, that first attack, you're doing the extra D10 and an effect and an extra 2 or 3 D6. So you're just doing a ton of damage.
Yeah, and then, God forbid you crit with that.
Oh, I know. Yeah, then it gets absolutely wild. So that's level 3. So yeah, they just changed Frenzy a ton. It used to be an extra attack that also gave you exhaustion after. And I know a lot of people hated that. I never saw that as that big of a deal, but I think it's because at our games, rests happen pretty frequently.
Yeah.
You know? So having 1 point of exhaustion was like meaningless. Especially for the Barbarian in 2014, who they're not making a ton of ability checks anyway, which is what exhaustion did in 2014 at one point.
Mm-hmm.
They've also simplified exhaustion a big time, which I think is a good thing. I personally liked 2014's version, but I don't dislike the new version either. But that's a discussion for another day. Path of the Berserker, level 6, Mindless Rage. This one is almost exactly the same. Immunity to Charmed and Frightened while the rage is active. If you're already charmed or frightened, the condition ends. Wording changes ever so slightly. In 2014, the Berserker, the wording was, the effect is suspended while you're raging, which would imply that as soon as you come out of rage, you go back to being charmed. But now it's just, no, the condition ends.
Okay.
So even if you pop into rage, you end those conditions, and then even if you instantly drop rage, you're good. They would have to re-charm you. So a little interesting. Then at level 10, we have... Oh, sorry, what's up?
Oh, no, it's fine. We can move on.
Okay. Level 10, we have...
Just caught a glimpse of the timer, and I'm like, we could just keep going. We still have 2 more of these.
Yeah, level 10, we have Retaliation. This used to be a level 14 ability. They moved it to level 10 because what used to be level 10, they made way better, and so they just swapped them.
Right.
Retaliation, when you take damage from a creature within 5 feet of you, you can use your reaction to make 1 melee attack.
Nice. Yep. And if you're doing Reckless, then that's going to be advantage because it's before the start of your next turn, end of your next turn, or whatever.
Yep.
So I like that.
Absolutely.
I love that.
I love it too. I imagine that they must have done a ton of playtesting with the 5 feet part. Take damage from a creature within 5 feet. I'm just thinking of all those times where a creature has reach, and it's like, this is the time to use it so that the Barbarian can never retaliate because they have to be within 5 feet. Really specific. Level 14, we got our Intimidating Presence. In the past, you could only target 1 creature, and the save DC incorporated your charisma, but now it incorporates your strength. And it's not just 1 creature, it's a ton of creatures. And instead of an action, it's a bonus action. So Intimidating Presence has just gotten good, where in the past, it was actual trash. No one used it because if you're a 14th level Barbarian, who the fuck is using their action to try and frighten people? 1 target, by mind you, makes no fucking sense.
Yeah, and especially given once you're at level 14, there's so much stuff that is just immune to being frightened. It just can't happen.
Yeah. So at least now it's better as far as it goes. So it's a bonus action, 30-foot radius from you, every creature of your choice, wisdom save. The DC is 8 plus your strength mod and your proficiency bonus. So presumably the highest you could get a DC from a Barbarian. If they fail, the creature is frightened of you for 1 minute, and they can repeat the save at the end of each of their turns. And you can only do this once per long rest unless you use a rage charge to do it again.
I like this.
Yeah, it's good.
I actually genuinely like this is a really cool ability. It's like turn everything, except that it's not like they don't have to run away from you, but being frightened,
it sucks.
Kind of sucks.
Yeah, it sucks big time because it really is just like, unless you're gonna run away from battle, you're just like, okay, I guess I just have advantage or disadvantage forever because I can't leave the sight lines and like, you can only move in certain directions, so it's really intense.
Yeah.
And this is the first example of what I was saying before of being able to use rage in different ways. So you can use it once for free, and then if you wanted to try and frighten everybody again in the same fight or the next fight or whatever, you can just use another rage charge and bang it out. So pretty fucking cool.
Hell yeah.
Next up, we have the Path of the Wild Heart, previously known as the Totem Warrior. I imagine they wanted to get a little more politically correct with it because totems have a lot to do with indigenous cultures. That's my thinking of it. I don't know. Maybe. Good for them. Level 3. We get Animal Speaker. Using Wisdom as your spellcasting modifier, you can cast Beast Sense and Speak with Animals spells. speak with animals, but only as rituals.
Okay.
So, pretty cool. Out of combat,
Yeah, I like
unlimited
that.
spells, spell slots in that
Yeah.
way.
Absolutely.
Animal
That's,
stuff.
I
Makes sense.
actually kind of really enjoy that because that does put the barbarian in kind of a different where the the berserker is definitely the Viking berserker. This is more of the gentle warrior of leading into more of that primal nature of the barbarian versus the anger part. This is more that primal connection with animals, the instinctual feeling of a barbarian, which I really like.
Yeah, for sure. And we did get Animal Speaker in 2014, but the next ability has been changed slightly. So first of all, it's called Rage of the Wilds. So once again, you choose a animal that is supposed to, because I know the phrase spirit animal is really specific to indigenous cultures, but it's essentially you're taking on the persona of a specific animal and like personifying their vibes, essentially. So just like last time, you get to choose a specific animal. Of course, you can homebrew or flavor this however the fuck you want. It doesn't need to be a bear, right? You can make it whatever the hell you want. It doesn't matter. I couldn't imagine a DM actually caring. If they do, they're wrong because it's flavor. But as they're written, you get the bear totem or the bear spirit or whatever you want to refer to it as. It's almost exactly the same as before, except you get resistance to all damage types except psychic, force, necrotic, and radiant. So they've added those last three, whereas in the past it was strictly psychic.
Rough.
So still, some damage types that we don't get to see every single combat, but it is a nerf. I mean,
it is definitely a nerf, and like, I don't know, adding on necrotic and radiant opens you up to a lot of damage.
Potentially, yeah. I mean, it really depends. Because like radiant, you're not going to get a ton of. Every once in a while, you'll find like a weird monster that uses radiant damage for one reason or another. But like, yeah, necrotic, force damage is another one that doesn't come up a ton. Neither does psychic, really. It depends on like what you're fighting. Like obviously, if in your campaign the whole point of the campaign is taking out mind flayers, then a shit ton of psychic. But like, so it depends on the game, obviously. But I mean, I think a lot of people could make the argument that the original 2014 Bear Barbarian was OP in some ways. Like just resistance to everything except psychic is nuts. It's really powerful, especially at level 3. Really intense. But, whatever. So that's the bear one. Eagle, when you bonus action rage, you can also dash and disengage as part of it. And then during your rage, you can bonus action do it again. So now you just get dash and disengage together, like combined as a bonus action.
Nice.
Pretty intense, pretty cool.
Hell yeah.
Then with the wolf, allies have advantage on any enemy within 5 feet of you.
I like that. I mean, that's pretty standard. That's always been wolf, but wolf is pretty broken.
Yeah, it's really, really cool. That's definitely a good one. So what they've done is they have eliminated like the tiger and the elk and other ones in the future. So they've just kind of like narrowed down. There's less options, but they are already the options that most people were choosing anyway. So
right,
I don't think it's that big of a deal, but
yeah, all three of those are solid choices.
They're solid choices. That's the hardest part. Is just figuring out which one to choose.
Which one? Yeah.
So then level 6, we get Aspect of the Wilds. The owl gives you dark vision, or if you already have dark vision, add 60 feet to it. The panther gives you a climb speed equal to your walk speed. And the salmon, the mighty salmon, sockeye, wild caught Alaskan salmon, gives you a swim speed equal to your walk speed. So
the mighty sockeye.
The mighty sockeye salmon. Swim up river, ye faithful hero.
I would honestly, I would have to flavor it as you're like doing the like the butterfly kick with just your legs. Like that's how you have to swim. Arms flat at your side and just your feet.
Yeah. A lot of core work. I love that. Then at level 10, this part stayed the same. Nature Speaker, you can cast Commune with Nature as a ritual.
Mm-hmm.
And the interesting thing about Commune with Nature, unlike a spell like Clairvoyance, for example, I mean, I don't even know about 2024 Clairvoyance, but I know in 2014 Clairvoyance, there's like a caveat at the end that's like, if you cast this spell a ton of times, eventually you're going to get bad information, right?
Right.
Commune with Nature doesn't say that. Not in 2024, at least. It's just an interesting thing. I imagine that most players just won't be dickheads and like constantly spam the hell out of it, but technically they could.
Right. Yeah.
And that's crazy to me.
Yeah.
You know me, I'm always looking for how people are going to break my games. So I'm constantly
I feel like it's
thinking about things.
It's a lot easier to commune with nature as opposed to asking a god. You're asking, nature.
Mm-hmm.
That it is a lot easier to throttle the information given, even if they ask a super specific question.
Yeah, for sure.
Like you don't have to give them whole big answers. That's the big thing with what is the one that I'm thinking of? It's divination is the clairvoyant where you can basically
you're
talk
right.
to
I said
God.
clairvoyance. I meant
Clairvoyance is the eyeball that you can send out. But like with divination, every question that you ask, you after the first one, you roll a D100, and if it gets below a certain number, the information that you get might not be good.
For sure.
But for at least that one question, that's kind of hard to throttle information and not have the player go, oh well, it says you got to give me all the information. It says you got to answer me honestly, which can obviously get spammed. Commune with nature, though, is very much it's not a deity. It's just the world around you. So
yeah,
I don't know.
In the outdoor, I'm looking at 2014, but in the outdoors, the spell gives you knowledge of land within 3 miles of you. Pretty intense. Crazy. And then in caves and natural underground settings, the radius is 300 feet.
Okay.
Pretty intense, though. It's a really, really good spell. I mean, it's a 5th level divination spell. It's really intense. But moving on, level 14, Power of the Wilds, Falcon. You get a fly speed equal to your walk speed. Pretty gnarly.
Hell yeah.
The lion. Enemies within 5 feet of you have disadvantage on all targets except for you, or if another barbarian is also using this exact same fucking thing.
So they're really hedging against.
I don't know how they thought that there would be 2, and there's gonna be multiple. What is this called?
Multiple
Wild Heart Barbarians who aren't choosing Falcon.
Right.
Crazy.
Right.
Absolutely crazy.
That's crazy. I would never pick anything else.
I know, it's so funny. And then we have here, if I was going to pick another one, it wouldn't be Lion, it would be Ram. I'm probably going to pick Falcon.
Yeah.
But maybe I can get a magic item that can give me speed, so I don't even need the thing, But Ram is intense because it just says you can cause large or smaller creatures to go prone with a melee attack hit. No saving throw.
No saving throw.
Nope.
No nothing. They just go prone.
And then you combine this with all of your different brutal strikes shit. It is bonkers. Yeah. Because I'll tell you what, you don't need advantage on your reckless attack if the dude's prone, because you're already going to get advantage from that. So it's just insane. That is the Wild Heart. Really fucking intense.
That's really intense.
Really good.
Yeah, like I said at the top, I really love that this leans more into the primal side of the barbarian.
Yeah.
It leads for a lot more in-depth characters, I think.
Yeah.
Not to say that the Berserker can't be an in-depth character.
No, but the mechanics
with the Berserker,
help you.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Because that's always been D&D's issue, depending on how you like to enjoy TTRPGs. Is that D&D is so focused on combat, mechanically speaking.
Yeah.
Right? Like it practically is a combat simulator in many regards. Are there mechanics and abilities and all kinds of stuff that help you with role play? Yes, but compared to combat, not even fucking close. So it's nice to see when mechanics can back up role play. I like that. Right. Because I'm cool with like I don't need mechanics to back up my role play. I can role play just fine without ever thinking about a rule or a mechanic. Sometimes I actually don't like that. I want my
Right.
role play to be more loosey-goosey. But teach their own.
Yeah,
Now,
absolutely.
moving on to the last
one more.
subclass of this episode, Path of the Zealot. Thank God they included this subclass, one of the best barbarian
Yeah, that's
subclasses
a
of
good one.
all time. However, they did change a couple of things. So, at level 3, we get Divine Fury. They kept it exactly the same. Your first hit does an extra 1d6 plus half of your barbarian level, and that damage is either radiant or necrotic.
Nice.
Then we get Warrior of the Gods. Now, in the past, this has been the little ability that allows you to be resurrected or revived without needing any material components.
Yeah.
And it was also called Warrior of the Gods. But now, instead of that, you start with a pool of 4 d12s, and you can use a bonus action to expend that dice and heal yourself. Almost like the... Kind of like lay on hands,
like
but it's a dice pool.
lay
so
on
it's-
hands, yeah.
Yeah, but it's a dice pool
It's
instead
kind
of
of
a
like
number pool.
what is it? The Celestial Warlock has the same kind of deal.
Yes. But those are d6s. But yes, exactly like that. Exactly like that. And you recharge this pool after a long rest, and the pool increases as you level up. At level 6, you get 5 d12s. Level 12, 6. Level 17, 7. So just a bonus action way to heal yourself and stuff like that. But this is what I mean, where it kind of stinks, this whole rage idea of the rage only lasting until the start of your next turn, and then you might have to use your bonus action to keep your rage going, in which case you can't heal.
Right.
It's just like an interesting thing. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I just need to see it played out. I'm just curious how that would work, you know? How often does that matter? Maybe it doesn't matter at all, and I'm just completely off base. You know, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of barbarians, especially as the tank, are on the front line, so they're making attack rolls anyway. But it still is very much like, what happens if you lose your speed or something, and they move out of range or something like that, and like, you know, already you're stuck in place.
Yeah,
and you have to choose. And I don't think, like, in 3.5. I talk about it like this edition a bunch because it's one of the ones that I know the best. But in 3.5, you are able to trade down. Basically, you can trade your action for another bonus action, or, you know, it's basically the way that the hierarchy was: action, bonus action, movement. You could trade your action for a bonus action, or you could trade your bonus action for more movement.
Yeah.
But you could trade up, obviously.
Yeah.
But yeah, so with that mechanic out the door, it's kind of hard to be like, okay, this is a good thing to make it a bonus action. I don't know how else you would flavor it, though. Like, how else you would move it into the economy, though, other than to make it a bonus action.
Right, no doubt. Yeah, no, because if it was an action, it's like not many barbarians are going to be healing themselves. They're not even going to worry about it.
Right.
But it is nice because, I mean, in the past, barbarians it was like bonus action rage and then never bonus action again.
Right.
In 2014, for the most part, unless you had frenzied or something. So it's good to have more options. That's always good, because it always feels bad as a DM when you're like, you just finished with one player and you go to the next player and you're like, oh, and any bonus actions? And they're like looking through their sheet and they're like, I don't even have any. And you're like, oh, okay, sorry. Rogue, tell me your 5 different options for your bonus action. That does feel bad sometimes. I mean,
what are we doing this time?
It balances out because it's like, well, wizard, you have thousands of options for your action. The rogue is either hitting or hiding.
Right.
So, you know, it all plays out. But then, okay, Zealot, level 6, Fanatical Focus. Once per rage, you can re-roll a failed save with a bonus equal to your rage damage bonus.
Okay.
So it's just like Indomitable. You're just re-rolling a failed saving throw, but you get to add a little bonus to it, which is cute. Okay. Starts at 2, only goes up to a 4, but it's objectively better than it was before, because Path of the Zealot used to do this exact thing, but it was just re-rolling the save. There was no bonus. So that's just better. Yeah. Then at level 10, we get Zealous Presence. Bonus. This is insane. Taylor. This ability is so fucking good. And frankly, with the exception of the tiniest of details, it's exactly the same as it was in 2014. And it was crazy then. Level 10, Zealous Presence. Bonus action. You unleash a battle cry. Up to 10 creatures of your choice within 60 feet of you gain advantage on attack rolls and saving throws until the start of your next turn.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wild.
An entire round of advantage on attacks and saving throws.
Jeez.
Yeah. Now, the only change is this. In the past, once you use the feature, you got to use a long rest. Now, that is still true, but you can also burn a rage charge to do it again.
Wild. That's crazy. In combination with the getting all your rages back on initiative, obviously you get that a couple levels later, but you get them all back. So it's like, that's crazy.
Yeah. It's nuts. Yeah, you don't get that initiative thing with the rages until 15, but still, yeah, no, it's nuts. They stack.
Now, what is... I refresh my memory a little bit on the rages and stuff. You get like 2 and then that's it, right? Or do you get more as you level up?
You get more as you level up.
Oh, wild. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. You start with 2.
It's broken. Right.
You start with 2. And I think at most, maybe 2014 at level 20, it goes to unlimited. I think they might have changed that because of the way that they're using rage charges to do other things now. They probably removed that. I didn't even look at that, to be honest, when I wrote this outline. But so, send us, leave us a comment, send us an email, let us know. But it usually goes up to like 6.
Okay.
6 charges of rage. And pretty fucking strong.
Yeah.
And I know this because every time that Tint did a similar thing in Sphinx City Season 2, it enraged me because it was so good. So that's really intense. Then we get level 14, Rage of the Gods. This is a huge deviation from the old one. It was one of those things where I actually loved the old one, but it was circumstantial. It really did depend on you hitting 0 and actually dying in combat practically, because the old one was called Rage Beyond Death. And it was that whole thing of as long as you're still raging, being at 0 hit points, being unconscious doesn't mean shit. You're still going. If at the time your rage
unlimited
ends,
rage, your rage never ends because you can just do it all the time.
Yeah, it only ends because of time.
Right.
And if you still are at 0 hit points at the end of that time, then you die. But pretty easy to heal somebody with 1 hit point or some shit. But maybe because they added in those different things with the Barbarian already, they've already added a couple of things of when you hit 0, you can add in half of your Barbarian level, We had that thing with the Persistent Rage. Or no, it wasn't Persistent Rage, it was a different one. Relentless Rage, excuse me, level 11.
Yeah.
But now you get a new thing, and it's very similar. The thing I would relate it to is a Paladin's Capstone ability, where you get to enter this insane state for a minute or 10 minutes, depending on the Paladin subclass. So now, when you rage, you can choose to activate this. So you don't have to activate it every time you rage, but you can choose to. It lasts a minute or until you drop to 0 hit points. You can only do it once per long rest.
Fair.
While you are in this form, you get a fly speed, including a hover, equal to your walk speed.
Hell yeah.
You are resistant to necrotic, psychic, and radiant.
Hell yeah.
And when a creature within 30 feet of you is about to drop to 0 hit points, you can take a reaction to use a rage instead to put them at a number of hit points equal to equal to your Barbarian level.
Rad as hell.
Yeah. So just...
No, you're not.
It's a minute, so you have a potential of 10 reactions where you could just be popping people up. No one goes down.
Right.
Nuts.
Within 30 feet too. That's a hell of a radius.
It's a pretty good radius. It's very interesting. I mean, obviously, the entire concept of this subclass is that the gods are watching you. You're part of that. You know what I mean? So that's. I think that's where the idea of from a distance you can just revive somebody is just you have this control over death, over fate, destiny. Very fucking cool. So those are the 3 subclasses that we hadn't already covered in 2024. Really intense. The Barbarian is fucking strong. Just stacked.
Yeah,
I mean, I think that's going to
really-
be the trend as we do these episodes
I
every
think so, yeah.
you know, maybe like once a month or however we decide to schedule out the classes.
Mhm.
But I think that we're going to see a trend of the classes just being like pretty fucking strong.
Yeah, and honestly, I'm okay with it as a power gamer myself.
Of course,
I'm
of
cool
course.
with it. It just you know, I think it adds more to the Barbarian other than just making it stronger. Like it's not just like it gives you more to do as a Barbarian, which is one of the things that I really like most about all of these changes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's a lot more versatility, a lot more you can do. But I think the one thing that remains true that they can never take away is Fresca, America's #1 grapefruit flavored
God
beverage.
damn it, Justin.
Thank you
Okay,
for
yeah, no,
sponsoring
that's
this
all we can
episode,
get
Fresca.
into this time. You can find us on TikTok and Instagram at SoYouWannaBeadm, or you can ask us a question at SoYouWannaBeadm@gmail.com. If you like the episode, don't forget to give us 5 stars and a review wherever you found us, and check out the Patreon and the Twitch with the link in the description. Join us next time for more Dungeon Master tips and tricks.
Bye.
See you.
And now I get to shout out the members of our Patreon gang. Nub Muffins, may Palor's light shine upon you. And then there's Tappy, Molly, and Elijah. Thank you all so much for being members of our Patreon gang. Remember, you can find the link to that in the description of the episode. And also remember this. We love you. Thanks again, and tune in next time for more tips and tricks from So You Wanna Be a DM.